feel like your relationship with yourself has to be number one priority all the time. And once I realized that, everything changed. When my top priority in life was my own peace, then I wouldn't let anybody take that away from me. Not even my own mom, my own grandma, my own brother. Like my top priority, and you're allowed to feel that way. Like it's not selfish to make your peace your number one priority. And once you start thinking that way, you find that it's easier to regulate your emotions. And isn't that the most important thing about life? Like, if I can just be peaceful and joyful all the time, despite what's happening around me, then I can maintain that. It doesn't necessarily depend on what my life looks like at that point. Like, I think somebody with that mindset ideally could be happy in the worst of situations.
Yeah, it's like there's this phrase that's become kind of popular and thrown around, and it's like, if it costs you your peace, it's not worth it, or like that's too expensive in a way. It's like that whole mindset of like, I have no enemies. Really, it's not that those people don't deserve to be looked at in that way if they've treated you badly, or, if they are sort of an antagonist in a way. It's not because they deserve to be seen as not as an adversary. It's really truly that within your own life, you will benefit more, you will feel more of the effects of that positivity by seeing no one as an enemy and feeling like, you have no enemies in your life in a way.
Yeah, kind of like just rise above, kill them with kindness. I never understood that as a kid because I was like, why did they deserve my kindness? Like, doesn't that mean that they are getting rewarded for treating me badly? And then I realized, like, oh, like, if I feel peace and they feel hatred, then I win.
Yeah,
I win. No matter what they do to me, I will protect myself and I will just try to stay as peaceful as I can. And that means not participating unless it's absolutely necessary.
and it's like it's always the emotions that are going to stick out to you. Like when you're remembering an event, it's not always like the justifications or the specifics of this interaction. It's always just how you came away from that event feeling. And I think that's a really important perspective to have. It's just like nothing else matters. Like this, you know, conceptual discussion you might be having with someone that turns into an argument, like just never bring it to a level of emotions, because suddenly it's like nothing else matters, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because emotions are the most powerful thing in this entire world and nobody talks about it. What you remember of your past is the emotion that you had at the time. So, however you chose to react to it is now what's stored in your mind, which is your entire past leading up to this point. And you have the ability to change that in the moment, but you can also go back and change it and decide to feel differently. So if your entire past is just a choice of how you feel, and your present is based on how you feel about your past and how you choose to feel right now, and then your future is how you can maintain that over a long period of time. And I feel like that's kind of what life is about, like in a really short manner.
Yeah, it's like if your perception of yourself is based on, the memories of the emotions that you've consistently felt, like in a way, if you see yourself as a depressed person or someone who's sad in a general sense, it's probably because most of your memories you were feeling that emotion. And so how can you change that perception of yourself? How can you move away from this mindset of being someone who's struggling with sadness and struggling with depression? Really, it's just choosing from this moment forward in a way to try to modify that emotion a little bit and store these memories differently so that you can overwhelm this sea of past memories of negatively reacting to events in your life to new memories of responding at least neutrally, if you can manage that. And like my brother said, just going back and trying to, work on those past events and sort of recapitulate them and go back through them and try to see if you can free up some of that emotional baggage and think about it in a way that you weren't able to at the time because your emotions were getting in the way.
Yeah, and I don't think it's unsensitive to say that. I think that is giving yourself back the power. I remember when I was caught, let's say, crying as a little kid. Sometimes my dad would say to me, "Don't cry. Stop crying." What he should have said is, "You don't have to cry." He should have said, "You are allowed to cry, but you don't have to. You could choose to see it differently, to feel differently." Because I didn't know as a kid that I had that power. And you do have that power. It's just resistance. It's just swimming upstream past the past.
Yeah, I feel like people would sometimes feel like it's insensitive to say something like that, or they feel like you're not seeing their full perspective or they're not feeling seen. And it's like, wow, well, it's easy for you to say from the outside that I should just choose to be happier or choose to respond to these events in a different way. Obviously, it's not an easy thing to do. Maybe it's not even feasible in a complete sense, but there is some amount of a capability. Like, we do have free will, and our emotions are something that we have some amount of power over, and at least empowering yourself with that perspective that you can work on this thing instead of just having to live with your entire life. Like, I promise that, giving yourself the power to think about your problems is something that's within your control, no matter what it is going to be more beneficial for your future than just, throwing your hands up and being like, I give up, because life isn't going anywhere. Your problems aren't going anywhere. And if, you just give up, you're just living with them. You might as well be living with them and fighting against that than living with them and just letting yourself keep losing and falling further and further back. Maybe you think you're at rock bottom, and so you're like, well, I give up. Like, I have so far to go to get out of the situation, and I can't go any lower. But you can always go lower. It can always get worse, I promise.
Yeah, well, yeah, it can always get worse. And I like what you said about, like, you have to fight even if you don't want to. You can't just give up. But you don't have to fight alone. And I promise you, it may seem like nobody cares about what you're going through, but maybe nobody has really given the energy, the attention to it. But I promise you, there's people that are capable of caring, and they can give you support, but you have to ask. I think that's the hardest part, is that you have to be an advocate for yourself, whether it's at the hospital with the doctor. You have to advocate for yourself. Give me the treatment that I need. You need to tell your friends, look, you love me. I would love to sit and talk. Maybe give me 30 minutes to vent to you about this one thing. Help me release this, or change how I feel about this, or help me talk my way out of this mindset that I'm in that's becoming catastrophic in my life. Because what we're seeking is change, and other people have contrast. Other people are coming from a different perspective, as a different person, and people can help you out of this. You are not alone.
Yeah, I feel like it's hard to want to ask for help and be vulnerable and put yourself out in that position, because you almost feel like you're admitting that it's not something you can handle on your own, or you're admitting that, like, you need someone else's outside perspective, or that you're struggling with it. And I feel like it's probably some part of our ego that we're even unconscious of. We don't realize why it's so hard to ask for help. But on the flip side, if you think about it, like, we like to be able to help people. Most people like to feel like they've been of service and made a difference for someone. So if you see it from that perspective, you're not burdening your friends by asking for help and asking if you're able to open up to this, and for them to be, help, like, assistive of that. It's like, really, in a way, you're giving them the opportunity to feel that they're of service. And so together you can both be helped and both come out with a better perspective. It can be
Yeah.
very collaborative.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think it can go that way for healing, and I think also teaching. Like, if you become someone that can ask a lot of questions, I find that the student mentality can be of the utmost value, and having humility can be of the utmost value, because I ask a lot of questions, and it's not that I think everyone else is so much smarter than me, but I know that me as a smart person, I still have so much to learn from all the people around me. And I think that's a really valuable thing. The person that's always learning is always going to be better off than the person that just is really intelligent and doesn't really invest that much into it.
Yeah,
Sometimes competence comes with a hint of arrogance.
that's why it's really important to just be humble. The very wise man, like this wise old guy, is someone who was humble his entire life, and so they learned those hard fought lessons that most people didn't achieve. And you see those like very grumpy old people who seem very unhappy with the course of their life and seem like they're just angry to be in this position where their time is running out. Those people clearly weren't humble enough and are still not humble enough to just realize that they're in a physical body and death is chasing them and nothing about the situation is going to change, so it's worth just accept and humble yourself before the universe.
I find that it goes in those two directions. You either, facing obstacles, decide humility, or you let the obstacles slowly drive you resentful and frustrated.